Tonight on God Bless America 36. Who will win the Democrat Civil War? The far left, the Democrat Socialists of America, or will the establishment Democrats fend off the hostile takeover of the party? Tonight, we dive deep into Karlin Borisenko's resource, Decoding the Left Map, after we previewed it last night. And we have a lot to get into with that, because looking at the net favorability polling among Democrats, it looks like the far left is winning the war against the establishment. But can they win general elections? Speaking of not being able to win general elections, Abdul El-Sayed proves to be the most flexible candidate in years, finding a new way every day to stick his foot into his mouth. And is Hasan Piker the worst surrogate of all time? Another video resurfaces of him. And plus, why Robert Redfield called out Fauci in a Wall Street Journal documentary. It's getting interesting over there in the medical world. And Spaniards are fighting back in Ceuta, Spain. What lessons can we learn here in America from Ceuta, Spain? And finally, we are revisiting the Lindsey Clancy case now that they've selected the jury. And I got to give a shout out to my boy Tim Corbett for just launching into the ridiculous Lindsey Clancy supporters. We're going to review all of that tonight on God Bless America. Wow, we got so many people within here to, this is exciting. Thank you all so much. I have the whole Karlin Borisenko cult in here, and I am just stoked. Thank you all so much. Yesterday, we had the best episode yet. It was truly invigorating and exhilarating to have all of you in the chat. And actually, let me pull up the chat just to show how active it is. Oh, my goodness. Look at all these people we got in here. Let me just rattle off all the people. We got Bot, Average Person 0021, Melinda Moon, Reagan again from last night. We have Hans Sexington, always love that name. And then we have Grinsdebe. We have Chad Jesus. Oh, that's funny. I get it. Red Menace Guru. We have all of you in here, and thank you all so much. BMAC. I mean, we'll get into all of you, but I am so appreciative of all of you coming in and really making my day. I had migraines all day. It was the worst I've ever had. I can't believe I'm here. But even when I was suffering through the migraines, I was like, I must get to the studio for the cult. I have to review The Left with the Karlin Borisenko crew. So I am just so honored that all of you are joining me. I am Eric Abinante, your humble host of God Bless America, comedian, producer, documentarian. You might know me from my film, American History of Voter Fraud. And yes, we are live here from Dallas, Texas. It's only 100 degrees here, so I have my ice bath under me, and we are going to get into it tonight. But, oh, man, the chat is just rolling. I mean, this is absolutely thrilling. So thank you all so much. And, yes, we have to get into what we were previewing a little bit earlier last night, which is the wonderful Karlin Borisenko resource, Mapping the Modern Left. And part of the reason why I think this is important to go over is actually, as much as it is for the left, I mean, for the right, important to go over, the left really needs to learn this too, because I don't even think they understand what is occurring in their party. And yes, Hans, I am podcaster, bro. Karlin gave me that nickname, and I don't think I'm going to be able to shake it. It's too good. So yes, I am just thrilled that we are going to get into all this. So part of why I think this is very important to go through is we have the left. They're going through their Democrat Civil War. And I have been covering this on the show quite frequently, how the Democrat Socialists of America are going up against the establishment. But now you can see quite succinctly within this cool little graphic we have from Carlin is that we have, oh, and I just realized it's like George Carlin. Bang. Okay, I'll remember that. So right here, tier 1 and tier 2, Democrat and liberal, those two are really the average Democrat that I know, like I've described. They're going to disagree with you on the solutions, but you actually would probably agree with them on what the problems are. So they're usually pretty reasonable, but they are not. When you get to the solutions, it's going to be tough. But then you have your tier 3 progressive, and this is someone who, they are kind of your swing voter here, because I know a lot of people who are in this camp as well, and they could shift over here to the moderate liberals, the neoliberal left, or they could be shifting over to the far left. And so this is, to me, this is a very interesting scenario to play out. How is the Democrat Party going to shake out? Are they going to allow the Democratic Socialists of America to take over? Or are the establishment, are they going to be able to push back this hostile takeover? And a good video to check out that I had done, which was on Michael LaRosa, and how he is standing up to the Democrat mob, and he is a tier 1 Democrat for sure. He is the press secretary for Jill Biden, and so, yes, he is absolutely within the establishment neoliberal tier, but him, Neera Tanden, Bill Maher, Van Jones, all of them have been pushing back against the new wave of progressives that you could categorize that group as the Hasan Piker Cenk Uyghur group, because they are truly pushing everyone within tier 1 and tier 2 to be tier 3 to tier 5. They really are pretty radical in their rhetoric. So, oh my goodness, we have a lot to get into today. And I love the whole chat, how we are going nuts here. Okay, progressives are the ones that organize the No Kings protest. The far left will sometimes go to progressive spaces to try and pull progressives further to the left. By the way, the socialist congressional candidate, Kshama Sawant, did not advance to the general. And that is a lot of what we're going to get at and what I've been talking about, which is the Democratic Socialists of America. They may have a lot of juice within their own side, right? But when they get to the general election, independents, if you look at the Democratic Socialists of America, they were polling, last I checked, around 17% favorability. And if you imagine what the Republican favorability of a Democrat Socialist would be, probably close to 1%. It's not very high. So the Democrat Socialists of America, they may be winning some primaries. And part of that is because, coming from American history of voter fraud, primaries are often more rigged than your general election because a primary doesn't have supervision from the other side. So it is funny. People talk about Abdul El-Sayed and his unprecedented amount of money spent against him. But actually, in American history of voter fraud, we cover the 1978 congressional, just the gubernatorial primary on the Republican side. And just in the gubernatorial primary on the Republican side, $25 million was spent between 5 different candidates. And I did the inflation calculator math on that, and it was over 120 million, which would be approximately double the amount that was spent on Abdul El-Sayed's campaign. So it was kind of funny to me how the media was telling you this is an unprecedented amount of money being spent. And then in our little film, we had shown you a gubernatorial primary that got at least double that. So it is funny that everyone thinks that what's going on right now is unprecedented, but there usually is a historical parallel. And so within that gubernatorial primary, there was a lot of shenanigans going on. Actually, it was old school voter fraud. For instance, back then it was the voting machines not connected to the internet that had levers, right? They would actually stick matchsticks at the bottom of the lever so that you couldn't fully pull the lever. And so that was just one of many methods of voter fraud within that campaign. So there is a lot that is going to go on in this battle between the Democratic Socialists of America and the tier 1 and the tier 2, your neoliberal left. And honestly, one of the more interesting side notes of this is, will the Democrat Socialists of America, will they harm the Democrat Party long term because of being labeled the Democrat Party? If they are labeled over and over that they are the radical extreme version of the party, will they be harmed long term? If you are a Republican in the audience, you're probably rooting for the DSA to really succeed and damage the party from within. But I am actually rooting for the Democrats to coalesce behind some normalcy and common sense, because if the Democrats are moving towards the middle, then that would actually force the Republicans to move towards the middle, and then there would be more of shared interest and some common ground. Whereas if the Democrats are going to go far left, well, then the Republicans are going to go far right. And I think when both parties end up running to the extremes, I don't know if that is going to be the best solution for the country. So, okay, let's just run through each tier, and then I'm gonna review some of your comments. And again, this is by far the best stream yet already, so thank you so much. A great follow-up to yesterday. I wasn't sure if we were going to be able to follow it up, and so thank you to all of you for truly uplifting me. And see, fighting through the migraines was worth it today. So, okay, tier 1, and then again, remember, this is from Karlin Borisenko, decodetheleft.com/map. So tier 1, Democrat. Establishment politicians focused on incremental reform within capitalism, mostly corporate aligned. Like I was saying earlier, Michael LaRosa is a good example of this. Tier 2, liberal. Thinks government should solve inequality through policy, not systematic overhaul, morally driven. And we're in the reasonable camp here. I may disagree, again, with their solutions here, but these seem to actually be pretty reasonable. Then we're going to start to flirt with insanity here. Wants structural tier 3, progressive. Wants structural reform, Medicare for all, Green New Deal, debt cancellation. Flirts with socialism, but doesn't want to overthrow capitalism. This would this is like your Bernie bro. Typically these people are sweet, but they are naive. Usually they don't have a lot of experience in the real world, and so ideas like the Green New Deal are enticing, but they actually are not the best way to go. And flirting with socialism, but doesn't want to overthrow capitalism, it's like a slippery slope. It's a gateway drug, right? Because what is the gateway? The gateway is into the far left down here, tier 4 and tier 5. So tier 4 this is the reformist socialist, wants to overthrow capitalism through electoral politics by getting into the system and making small changes over time. The goal is a post-capitalist society. And tier 5, revolutionary socialist, believes capitalism must be overthrown entirely, rejects elections and reformism, advocates for revolution, abolition, and radical restructuring of society. Now, tier 4 and tier 5, these are what I call the takers. You know, you have the makers who are usually the ones actually running society, and tier 1 and tier 2, probably makers, but then you have all the takers down here. And then Carlin actually does have a handy dandy resource for LGBTQ as well, the queer ideology thread. And so she has similar tiers for that, and we'll get into that later. And then the pink triangle marks the growing presence of queer ideology. What starts as symbolism becomes the engine of the revolution. And it might have to be even updated in the sense of you might need to have some watermelons over here, because the red-green alliance, which I'm sure she has talked about pretty extensively, is also now falling into these same situation. And so, average person, did you guys go over some of the queer ideology yesterday? No. We are going to get into that tonight. And it was a wonderful stream in the sense that all of you were quite participating and being very supportive. And it was when I had the worst glitches ever. I mean, I couldn't even play a clip. So I was talking for 3 hours straight. Oh, really quick. So we have, I offered all of you, any one of you, to come on and actually participate in the show, right? And part of that stems from the fact that I had before I had Carlin follow me back and I DM'd her, I wasn't sure if I could get her on, so I offered members of the cult to come in, and any one of you have a standing offer to come on to the show, because actually Carlin was suggesting this right here.
Carol's work in the feminist.
Yeah, you guys that made new friends last night with that podcaster, bro. You guys all go do the interview. This is gonna be a good test for you guys. I just replied to him and said, "Hey, I'm willing to talk to you if you want to, but I think you guys should actually go do the interview, because this will be a good test for all of you to see how much you've been learning." Okay. But don't fucking embarrass me. If you guys do an interview about my work, you better not fucking embarrass me.
Carol's work in the feminist.
Yeah,
That's funny. So yeah, I gotta have a couple of you on. Now, I offered it to Reagan first, but again, all of you have the opportunity, the whole gang here. Okay, you all have an opportunity to come on, because I don't feel like I'm not a credentialist. I'm not like looking for, a official expertise. I feel like all of you have a version of an expertise that I want to hear from. I learned a lot from you all yesterday, just talking. So I would love to have any of you on. Just DM me. I will follow all of you back, and we will get through that. And at some point, I will have Carlin on, but I will preview that, and you will very much know. So, okay, let's get back into the tiers. And I actually do love how Carlin broke this down, because why this matters. The biggest mistake people make is treating the entire left like one monolithic group. It isn't, and that is alone. I know that the right has issues diagnosing the left, but I also think that there are people on the left who don't understand the insidious forces below them. They're the tier 1 and the tier 2s. I don't think they're fully aware of how tiers 3 through 5 have really committed a hostile takeover of the party. And because of that, they're having that. I think actually Carlin's resource would be better served to teach the left about themselves. Okay. So yes. And I know how some of you are saying that you would embarrass Carlin if you came on. No. You're all going to come on and crush it and do great. I have no worries or qualms about you all coming on. So, and I have offered audio only, so you can call in. Like, I can do that. I have done that with my various friends on the show, or I can have you visually up. Last time I had someone visually up, I couldn't get like the highest quality, so I felt bad. At the moment, audio only actually would be better at the moment. But yes, I will definitely have all of you on who want to come on. Communists hate the liberals and Democrats more than they do the Republicans. Average person 0021. Now, that's actually pretty interesting because if you're looking at the Hasan Piker, Cenk Uygur, Anna Kasparian wing, that is quite true. In fact, they are so upset right now. We were supposed to cover a clip from from yesterday, but nothing worked, where Anna Kasparian was so black-pilled by everything that she was saying that she didn't want to vote for the for the Democrats. So let's play that really
Now,
quick.
I should note that while the closure of the Strait of Hormuz has a lot to do with what's going on right now with the limited supply of oil, something else that's contributing to this mess is the fact—
Oh, wrong clip. There's another Anna Kasparian clip. I'll get you. But yeah, she was saying this is it right here. My bad.
And why the establishment's never going to change, and why we're on a direct collision course here. And I don't know what's going to happen with the country because it is so highly coordinated. Josh Gottheimer also attacking and using the same exact talking point. Hillary Scholten, a so-called Democrat from Michigan, using the same exact talking point. And it doesn't matter. I can keep going and going and going.
Okay, so pause.
Hold on.
Okay.
Dozens of media figures.
If you ever watch The Young Turks, I do feel bad for Anna Kasparian because he talks for 90% of the time, and then she is just waiting to get in her point, and then he will push her back, all the time. He is the pitcher to the catcher here. It is funny.
Dozens of politicians, by the way, Democrats, all attacking Democratic candidates because of their connection to Hasan, and this disingenuous quote, as if Hasan meant to hurt Jews when he was saying, let's protect Jewish Americans. All of them know that that's a lie. All of them have seen the full quote, and all of them are lying to you on purpose not to attack Hasan. And Anna, no one knows this better than I do, because remember when I ran for Congress in 2020, I was viciously attacked, totally lied about. It wasn't about me. It was because Bernie Sanders had endorsed me. They do smear by proxy. So then they said, you see, Bernie's guilty, guilty, guilty. And they all did it in unison. CNN, New York Times, LA Times. There is coordinated strategy in this country to destroy any candidate that Israel opposes. And
see how, just like average person was saying, is this, I would dare call Cenk a communist with how radical his rhetoric is. See how he is actually upset more with the establishment, the mainstream media, the Democrat Party, than he is even with the Republicans. And so that is just to buttress your point, average person. I think that's spot on.
yes, that includes Jewish candidates like Bernie Sanders, who they despised. AIPAC absolutely despises Bernie and Abdul El-Sayed and everyone that Hasan has endorsed. So all of the Democrats, this vote blue no matter who Democrats, are now saying, do not vote for our party. Do not vote for our candidates.
Don't worry, I won't. I think the Democratic establishment is scum. Honestly, I'm so black-pilled on Democrats at this point. I am not invested. I think you guys can tell. I don't really cover the races. I don't care. I don't care, because the Democratic Party is so far gone and so delusional.
So yes, to answer your question, Hans, Hasan is the nephew of Cenk Uygur. Cenk Uygur gave Hasan his start on the Young Turks, and he said a lot of different controversial things that would normally get you fired, but when your uncle runs the network, you're usually given a little extra benefit of the doubt. And so it's he kind of created a monster in a sense, because as we'll cover later, Hasan Piker, a perfect exemplary of the far left that we are covering today, his ideas in his own circle, in his own bubble, seem normal to them, but when they are getting out into the mainstream, it is becoming problematic. And some of it are jokes, and I will defend Hasan for making jokes, but then some of it goes too far and it's indefensible. And that is the major issue. And I do take your point well that you guys need to keep your identity secret because you're infiltrating far left groups. So the sounds like actually the call-in version, I have been able to do that with the setup I have. I can feed you in via Bluetooth, and that'll work out great. If I need to get a Darth Vader voice modifier, I will do that as well. You know, like I'm on 60 Minutes or something. That'll be fun. So, yeah, I will take care of all of that when I have you on at some point. Maybe on a Sunday show or something. That would be fun. So, and yes, Hasan has definitely called for the fall of capitalism and stuff like that. And so, it is hard. I know it's a little confusing because we're talking about Abdul El-Sayed, but so Abdul El-Sayed had Hasan become his surrogate. And the rationale for that was Hasan was supposed to drive up the youth vote in the Michigan college towns. And I'm sure he did, actually. But like I said, the primary victory, pretty easy, even though who he defeated, yeah, she was a little wacky. There is a clip of Haley Stevens saying, "I see Israel in my dreams," or something like that. I had to look. I was like, is that AI? That's crazy. But she as a Democrat, as a centrist Democrat, probably, you know, probably tier 1, not even tier 2. She had defeated 4 Republicans in a row. And then you're swapping her out for Abdul El-Sayed, who is very popular amongst the base, but struggles in the general. And you're seeing that now with Mike Rogers. This shouldn't be an easy victory for Mike Rogers. A Republican has not won a Senate seat in Michigan since 1994. But at the moment, the Republican Mike Rogers is favored to win in that race because of the radical rhetoric, the I would say somewhere between reformist and revolutionary socialist of Hasan Piker. So, yeah, why this matters is understanding the spectrum isn't about semantics, it's about strategy. Each tier feeds the next, but each one must be understood on its own terms. You can't fight socialists by targeting Democrats. I think that's a great point. You can't apply the same tactics to street protesters that you would to corporate-backed politicians. If you try to expose a black bloc anarchist using polite debate tactics meant for a liberal think tank, you'll get steamrolled. Oh, and I love that point because on a previous show, we covered Saul Alinsky's Rule for Radicals and the agit prop, and the agit comes from agitation, right? And so if their whole tactic is to agitate you, then if you are talking to them like a normal person, it's actually not going to work. You need to kind of fight fire with fire on that one. So I think it's just an excellent point by Carlin. If you don't know who you're fighting, you will lose. That is a good point. Liberals soften resistance. Progressives shift the Overton window. And Democrat socialists normalize Marxism. Revolutionaries burn it all down. Queer ideology threads through every level, not just as identity, but as the justification for dismantling truth, nature, and structure. I love that because, yeah, it's, as we had talked about yesterday briefly, it is destroying the nuclear family is a central tenet to all of this. Because if you can destroy the nuclear family, then you are destroying the logical foundation, the fundamentals of this society. What starts as a rainbow sticker ends as gender abolition. Very good. And Queer ideology changes the rules. It doesn't argue, it coerces. Yes. It doesn't reform, it dismantles. And the further you move down the spectrum, the more central it becomes. It starts at tolerance, and then it becomes identity, then ideology, then enforcement, finally, destruction. This isn't a coalition, it's a chain reaction. Every tier feeds the one beneath it. You don't need a unified movement when each part is doing its job to shift the culture, seize power, and erase opposition. Decode the spectrum or lose to it. Very true. And also, like I was saying, she has the handy-dandy queer ideology thread. And so I do want to get into that. So queer ideology is the connective tissue that runs through every tier of the leftist spectrum. It's not always front and center, but it's always there, shaping language, strategy, and morality. What starts as surface-level tolerance at the top becomes full-blown cultural reengineering by the time you hit the bottom. So, a really cool graphic here. Love how this is set up. Looks like a little a little gay slide right here. Very nice. And you're sliding down through all these different radical agendas. So, Tier 1 Democrats, LGBTQ politics is used as branding, pride flags in every agency, DEI officers enforcing pronouns. It's performative, but it signals. This is, if you remember, there was a time period where you were being pressured to put your pronouns in various spots. And I mean, you see it still in the YouTube channel. It'll ask you for your pronouns. Various applications for jobs, etc. They will ask you for your pronouns. You're still seeing it. It's less pervasive and ubiquitous than it used to be back in, like, I guess what we call woke one now, the 2020 era. And so, but yeah, it's performative, but you still have to, it's still, you have to see it. So Tier 2 liberals embrace queer theory without understanding it. Gender ideology gets institutionalized through HR departments, school policy, and soft censorship. And this is what I was referring to earlier. These HR departments are the ones who are going to be putting the pronoun questions in those job applications. And school policy, this is where you get the teachers. I saw a post today of a teacher saying, well, if they're not going to let us teach queer ideology, then we're going to leave the school and not teach. And many people were saying, well, your terms are acceptable at that point. And soft censorship, essentially, if you don't go along with the ideology, we will punish you, usually via excommunication. And so then you have Tier 3, the progressives. Queerness becomes sacred. Trans rights are treated as the new civil rights, and that's very true. Any dissent is labeled violence. And if you remember, at one point in the 2020s, they had the silence is violence chant. And that was more in reference to George Floyd, but it's part and parcel, birds of a feather here, because in the end, if you are not participating in this charade, then you are considered a dissenter and considered violent in some way towards them. This is where compelled speech, medical transition for minors, and the full activist toolkit explode into the mainstream. Very true. Tier 4, reformist socialist. Queer identity is reframed as a revolutionary force. They reject the family, reject gender norms, and build power around intersectional oppression. Reproductive justice, trans collectives, queer mutual aid groups, and anti-family rhetoric become political weapons. Yes, and like I said, destroying the nuclear family is key to this. And then the Tier 5, the revolutionary socialists, gender abolition, queer anarchy, the destruction of monogamy, the nuclear family, and biological reality. These groups view queerness as the moral core of the revolution. It's not an identity. It's a battering ram against Western civilization. And I think it's 100% right. Love the resource that Carlin has provided us. And so, okay, so, there's so many comments. I have never had this many comments before. I am a little overwhelmed. I will find a way to review all of them if I can, but it's so cool. So cool that all of you are participating. And if there's a song, I do want to play it, but I just make sure that hopefully it's not a song that's going to take down my whole stream. I have had that before, and it's devastating. Okay, so hopefully it's not that. Usually it wouldn't be, but yeah. So okay. Let's go into, and yes, I do feel welcomed into the cult. All of you have been so kind and so nice to me, for sure. But okay, cool. Okay, yes, send me the link to that, and I'll play it for sure. So yeah, don't worry about that. I'll definitely play it if it won't take down the stream. This used to be, I used to clip out Bill Maher all the time, and then they changed the rules on that. And now you can't even review Bill Maher clips without them, blocking your stream. And so that's just one example of that. And so, Okay, so now let's go through each tier. Now that I've given you the queer ideology and the mapping of the tiers, let's dive into each tier. So, tier 1, Democrats. Let me see if I can move this over. Yeah, I gotta see you better over there anyways. Okay. Move you up. Cool. Okay. Tier 1, Democrat. The corporate mask of the left. Democrats are the establishment gatekeepers. They posture as progressive while protecting the status quo. These are the power players in suits, the Clintons, the Obamas, the Bidens. They speak the language of equity when it's convenient, but their allegiance is to corporate donors, global institutions, and maintaining control over the system. They see leftist movements as tools to co-opt and contain. And again, this is where you are seeing the Civil War play out currently. You have the establishment Democrats who are understanding a little too slowly and surely that if you let the hostile takeover of the progressives of the Democratic Socialists of America, if you allow that to happen, then the rest of the party is going to be branded this way. There was a pretty conservative Democrat in Kansas. She is, I forget her name, but she was a pastor in her community in Kansas. A lot of people know her as the woman who baptized their children. There has a great connection. She was getting asked about Hasan Piker, Abdul El-Sayed, Francesca Hong, Daria Lisa Chevalier, all the quasi-communist rhetoric that was coming off of that side. And what were the positions that they had? It was abolish ICE, abolish prisons, abolish borders. Abolish borders. That's not going to go well when you have images like they had in Ceuta, Spain. And this is why they are pushing back against this stuff. Hey, abolish borders. That's not, I don't think that's going to be popular down the road. And so if you are an establishment Democrat, you are wise to fight against this because you don't want Abdul El-Sayed et al. To be used as a cudgel to be able to hit over the head of various moderate Democrats who probably don't deserve it, but you all are going to be branded by the bad apples in your bushel. The good apples, yeah. Who cares about them? But the bad apples are going to be the ones who get all the headlines, get the attention, and they're going to be the ones who brand the party, whether you like it or not. So I actually appreciate the establishment like the Van Jones, Neera Tanden, Bill Maher, Michael LaRosa. They are fighting a good fight for their party because they are understanding what is coming down the road. And you could say it is something like they speak the language of equity when it's convenient, but they have an allegiance to corporate donors. You could definitely say that. But I think in this case, they are actually in the right to fight against the radicals here, because if I was invested in the Democrat Party, I too would want to prevent this radical change within the party, because long term, when you get into the general, I describe the Democratic Socialists of America like the blue Tea Party. If you remember the Tea Party back in the early 2010s, like they had some decent ideas actually, but a lot of their candidates were kooky. Christine O'Donnell, I'm a witch. Good example of that. And so when they got to the general, truly struggled because, yes, the extremes within the primary they were able to appeal to the base of their party. But when they got into the general, regular people are, And then, as you know, the two-party era, I'm not saying it's coming to a close, but we are definitely at the low point of it. And because of that, there are more independents than ever. Now, some of them are quasi-independents. They're just saying that. But in the end, the whole country is basically saying, after 8 radical years of Obama and after 8 radical years of Trump and then 4 more radical years of Biden, we want normalcy, and I do understand that as well. I understand why people are saying, let's go back to kind of boring candidates. That would be fun. And okay. Strategy, incremental reform, symbolic gestures, so true. Neoliberal policy in activist drag. Let's see if I can find the perfect example of this, because let's see if I can find this, because Nancy Pelosi. Aha, I found it. Sweet. So here's a great example of a symbolic gesture that means nothing. Yes, this is a great example of what a lot of Democrats are doing. What did this do for anybody? Nothing. Oh, and I got another good one for you, actually, that represents this. This one was hilarious. Oh my goodness. Be prepared, because it's about as bad as it can get. I think she hit it. So it's Nithya Raman. Let me see if I can find it really quick. She just put some paint on a street, and it was, yes, sweet. Okay, I found it. Look at this. So this is an example of just a complete empty gesture. The Los Feliz Neighborhood Council alerted our office in late 2025 to the need for a crosswalk at Sunset Drive and Bay Street, which has just been completed. Oh my God. She is congratulating herself on, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yellow lines. Wow. I mean, there was already yellow lines over here, and notice how they didn't even update the paint over here. They could have updated the paint over here, but they just put in 7 yellow lines over this cracked street, called it a day. Incredible virtue signaling, just like Melinda was saying. Yes. So symbolic gestures, I absolutely agree with there. And yeah, Melinda, I mean, it's just like, could you imagine actually thinking that this is something to brag about? It took so late 2025. I mean, we're talking at least 6 months, maybe 9 months. And all you did, we're talking one yellow stripe a month. Wow. So yes, that is a perfect example of a symbolic gesture. Neoliberal policy in activist drag. Yeah. So the goal is to sustain power within capitalism while pacifying the activist base. And I will say, there is, as I'm saying that that tier 1 and tier 2, that they need to take over the party. It's not that they are above criticism. They are certainly the empty gesture crew. They are just taking money from the donors. They are trying to elongate the status quo without changing anything, but trying to do enough symbolic gestures to appease and pacify the activist base. So how they show up: identity politics, DEI commissions, donor-funded campaigns. I think a good example of this was when Joe Biden was saying that I need to have a Supreme Court justice who's a black woman. And you're like, well, why not just get the best person? No, we got to have a black woman. Okay, interesting. So that's the identity politics, essentially the DEI commissions as well. And so, example, the Biden administration declared victory by signing the Respect for Marriage Act, which was already settled law after Obergefell. At the same time, they appointed a drag queen luggage thief, to the federal energy post, and redefined Title IX to include gender identity, and flooded federal agencies with DEI officers and climate equity czars. These aren't policies, they're cultural landmines designed to demoralize the opposition and signal obedience to activist orthodoxy. So I did forget about the drag queen luggage thief. And one of the great stories, there's this African woman who had pictures of her custom-made designs and how she was posting all of the different times. Like, she would show her custom-made designs on a runway on an African model, and then she would have it in a split screen with the drag queen luggage thief, and how he was wearing the same garb. It was just incredible. One of the best clockings by somebody with actual evidence. And so examples of this are the Democrat National Committee, the DNC, Brookings Institution, and the New Democrat Coalition. So, like I was saying, your Michael LaRosa's, Van Jones, Neera Tanden's, I believe they are all Obama or Biden administration. So, yeah, they are a good fit. So, okay. Tier 2, liberal. And let me see. There are so many comments that I probably should be reading, but I'm just overwhelmed by how many comments. I've never had this many. Okay, so I will get better at this, but I have so much love that is being poured onto me right now. I am not sure how to do it. Okay, really quick. Hans Sexington. Eric, Hunter Biden for president or no? I have talked about this on the show, actually. Really quick. Let's do a quick tangent. And so I must say, I actually think that Hunter Biden is a real dark horse, okay? And just to prove that I don't, pun intended that, because I did say that Byron Donalds was a dark horse, and I was saying, hey, no pun intended there. But Hunter Biden is a true dark horse in the sense that he could be the emergent one. They always talk about how you don't want to be the peak too early person like a Gavin Newsom. You don't want to, and actually AOC might be in that same category of peaking too soon. Whereas Hunter Biden could be the one who is actually the one who emerges at the right time. He has continually said that he is not going to run, and that is typically the smartest answer for someone who is running. He, I believe, is going to get very angry with this new progressive radical left, because let's review. So Abdul El-Sayed is he has been the flavor of the month. The left wanted to push him as the next Zohran Mamdani. Zohran, actually, he has excellent. Oh, let me see if I can pull it up this way. He has excellent favorability ratings to the point where he, at this point, is the most popular Democrat going right now. Let me pull it up. There it is. So, the anthropomorphic Energizer Bunny, also known as Harry Enton, here he is talking about Zohran Mamdani and how popular he is.
Okay, net favorability rating among Dems nationally. Look who's at the top of the list. It's Zohran Mamdani, plus 54 points. Better than AOC at plus 47. Better than Hakeem Jeffries at plus 27. Chuck Schumer has real popularity problems even among Democrats. He was only at plus 10. But among Democrats, Zohran Mamdani is arguably the most popular modern-day politician who's actually currently in elected office, beating all these folks. If you're a Republican, you'd be much better off going after Chuck Schumer or even Hakeem Jeffries than going after Zohran Mamdani, who still is very, very popular, at least.
Now, Zohran Mamdani, the secret to his success is he does this a lot better. So he does a lot of cheap, he does a lot of photo ops like this, but he's going to make it look a lot better than this. Part of it is he has a mommy who was a multi-million-dollar director, which is why his first job out of college was music selection on his mommy's film set. Hey, and for those of you who think you could do Zohran Mamdani's job as music selector on his mommy's film set, think about all the work that has to go into that. You have to listen to music and pick it, okay? Do any of you in the audience have that skill set? I think not. So, yeah, there's no way you could do what Zohran Mamdani does, okay? So, and if you notice, Zohran has excellent commercials, and so, like, he is going to, he is the poster boy of how to get popularity within the Democrat Party. And so Abdul El-Sayed was trying to be propped up as the next Zohran. He would be the first Muslim senator in this country, aside from Barack Obama, but officially he would be the first one, Mr. El-Sayed. So, and for the censors, I'm being facetious, okay? Calm down. So, and okay, so here is part of why I actually think that you're going to see a Hunter Biden run. And again, thank you for bringing that up, because I think it quite relates.
Joe Biden's office announced that he has been diagnosed with an aggressive form of prostate cancer.
They don't care, myself included, that we don't care that Biden has prostate cancer. I thought it was curing cancer, not getting it, dude. What happened? He said he was going to cure cancer, Jack. Jarring is the word. He's already dead. He's basically been propped up. He's basically been propped up with a stick up his ass. that keeps his spine erect for the past multiple years at this point. What do you mean? He's been dead. What are we talking about? It's very, very, very difficult for me to have even a fraction of sympathy for this fucking war criminal, even if you are to cover it from the perspective only of domestic policies. Even if you think like Palestinians are nothing, I don't think that him getting cancer is even justice, okay? It is not even a fraction of what Joe Biden deserves.
Oh my God.
Okay, that's it.
Oh my God. So if you're Hunter Biden watching that, I think that you are going to want to jump into the fray and take over the party from these Looney Tunes, because I think it's just, I don't know if you are Hunter Biden, that you're going to take that laying down. And again, this is the guy who is campaigning with Abdul El-Sayed. They wanted to turn him into the flavor of the month. And so do I think that they are going to, like, that he is going to be able to take over the party and emerge? I actually think that Hunter Biden has a chance. He has decent favorability even among the Republican side, partially because he has been so honest with his struggles and his addiction. So I think that Hunter Biden is a real possibility, and it was a good question. Now, Hunter is good friends with Tucker Carlson. Now, that is an interesting connection because Tucker is also being asked, will he run? And I am a little biased because as a producer, I have had to book Buckley Carlson. And again, can we file a class action lawsuit against the Carlsons? Why is there a Buckley Carlson brother and then a Buckley Carlson son? It is so annoying, okay? Like, to have to distinguish between these two. So annoying. But Buckley Carlson, the brother, I had to book for a show. He could not be kinder to me. Very sweet guy. So that definitely colored my view of the Carlsons in general. But I do think that Hunter is a real possibility, far more so than even Tucker. Tucker has more headwinds to go up against in the Republican Party. And if you look at the Republican Party, it's all shaken out for Marco Rubio right now because, and I know there are many who accuse Marco Rubio of being owned by Israel. My Groyper friends love to call Marco Rubio Marco Jubio. But I will say Marco has a real lane opening up where, because of the unpopularity of the ICE and the deportations, even though I'm all for it, I certainly can admit that there have been some optic issues and it could have been better executed from the public standpoint. But I do think because the Republicans have lost their biggest gained group in 2024, Hispanic men, I feel like Marco Rubio is going to have to be the guy who regains that base, or else the Republicans don't really have a way forward. So Hunter Biden, I actually do think would be a frisky bet. And we had gone over this before. So J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio, when they did the head-to-head polling, J.D. Vance he fared worse than Marco Rubio on every single head-to-head matchup. And J.D. Vance lost to every Democrat in head-to-head polling except for AOC. In fact, J.D. Vance polls very poorly against Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. So J.D. Vance, and I feel like J.D. Vance, the albatross around his neck is partially not his fault. He has to be a good soldier. He has to be the vice president just doing the orders of the president. But because of that, if you look at his unfavorables, he is having more trouble distancing himself than a Marco Rubio. So I feel like Marco Rubio would be the best bet, and then you have Hunter Biden. Because the people that they were polling in the head-to-head, it was John Ossoff, Buttigieg, you had Gavin Newsom, Mr. Peak Too Early, and then you had AOC and Kamala. And Kamala, actually, she did not poll very well against Marco. She, again, polled better against JD. That was the biggest flip when you looked at the head-to-head, and to me, that was fascinating. Whereas Hunter, I feel like if you polled Hunter against all those, I feel like, one, he would do very well against JD, and two, he would probably do the best against Marco. Now, Ossoff and Buttigieg actually did pretty well against both, but let's be honest. Buttigieg ain't gonna Mr. Polls 0, 0, 0, Blutarski with black people. I can't see that. And then Ossoff, he has the yellow star, and I can say that, don't worry, but he has the yellow star on him. And so in the Democrat Party, they are not going to have any Jew in any way. And by the way, who said that? Mr. Hasan Piker was one of the people who had said, yeah, there ain't going to be anyone who is any form of pro-Israel in the Democrat Party. So essentially what you're saying is you need to have a cuck Jew to represent the Democrat Party. No chance. So John Ossoff isn't going to happen. That's fool's gold. He's like Josh Shapiro. He's got some athletic ability in terms of the political arena. I just don't see it, though, within the Democrat Party. So, and you're saying, guys, this is stupid. Hunter Biden. Hey, they said that Trump had no chance too. Hunter Biden, actually, there is something there. There is something there. But okay. And here's the thing I was referencing with the yellow star, by the way, Hans. Here is what I was referencing. Because even Michigan Democrats but this ties right back. We're going to go right back into this. Don't worry, because this ties right into what Carlin is saying.
I've said this over and over again that, when a black person says that phrase that you're using or the way you're talking about this issue, to me is racist. I'd like you to stop doing it. We respect that. When somebody, when we're talking to somebody in the LGBTQ community and say, I don't like the phrase that you're using, or that term is offensive to me, and here's why. We respect that in the Democratic Party. We say, okay, I'm not going to use that phrase anymore. I didn't realize that it was offensive to you. I'm going to stop. But this has been an outlier for me. I have people saying, you are not going to tell us what you deem to be anti-Semitic. We'll decide what's anti-Semitic. That's not up for you, the Jewish population, to decide. And I find that to be very off-putting and offensive. I think that's totally unacceptable. But the last thing I will say is this. If that's the deal that has to be made, and I've been really candid about this, I was Jewish before I was ever Michigan Attorney General. I'm going to be Jewish afterwards. I was Jewish before I was ever a member of the Democratic Party. And if I have to, I'll be Jewish afterwards too.
Well, you reap what you sow, honestly, and you're not going to get any sympathy from me, Mishbuka, okay? Because let's go back to what Carlin is saying. Look, you as a tier 1 or tier 2, you're now shocked that the tier 3 to tier 5 have taken over the party, and they're essentially everything that you as a Jew wanted to utilize in terms of navigating the left, Well, those are all being taken away from you now. Guess what? You don't get to decide what is anti-Semitic anymore. The party gets to decide. And the party includes Hasan Piker, who was essentially saying, we only like the Jews who are not going to stand up for Israel at all. We want you to back down on that topic. And to me, I'm sitting here laughing going, that's what you get. That's what you get for letting the inmates run the asylum. And I am going to laugh as you are excommunicated from your own tent. Good for you. Dana Nessel, you get to be Anne Frank because you get to go into the attic of the Democrat Party because you don't matter anymore. Guess what? And that's what you get, okay? That's what you get. You reaped what you sow. So I have no sympathy for you, Mishbuka, okay? That's what you get. So, tier 2 liberal. Let's go back into this. Yeah. Yes. Shalom means hello and goodbye, by the way. And so, shalom. Okay. Goodbye. So, Eric looks like my ex-Jewish boyfriend, actually. Yeah, see, we're all pretty good looking. Now, anytime I do something positive, most of my friends like to say it's the Italian side. Anytime I do something negative, they attribute it to my Jewish side. That's always been a funny dynamic. So, okay, tier 2 liberal. Let's get back into mapping the modern left. But I, again, really appreciate all of you and your comments. Jewish again, why are they at all the stuff? I know, right? Doesn't it feel like we are inserting ourselves into everything? It's just so annoying. And yeah, we could all tell she is a Jewess, right? Yes. And you could tell too. I mean, we have pretty similar nose structure, okay? Look at the schnoz on both of us. Yeah, you could tell. And it's not saying it's a bad thing, like Jerry Seinfeld, but yeah, you could tell, and I don't mind that at all. By the way, I think that you're just being honest there. So, tier 2 liberal, and so we had just reviewed tier 1, and then I got off on a tangent about Hunter Biden and how he actually does have a shot going forward in 2028. But okay. Back to tier 2 liberal. So the morality police of policy. Yes, this is great already. Liberals want a safer, cleaner capitalism. They're motivated by guilt, not revolution. They push government solutions to social problems, but panic at the thought of tearing down the system that gives them comfort. Their activism is aesthetic yard signs, pronouns, symbolic causes. They're the academic NPR listening class who believe in top-down change as long as they don't lose their retirement fund. So, okay, strategy, policy tweaks, feel-good legislation, moral posturing. And I think this is ultimately the phrase I'm going to lean on the most for this section, the moral posturing. I think that wraps it up quite nicely. So the goal is to humanize capitalism without destabilizing it. And so I think a lot of this is just window dressing. Hey, we're going to act like we're changing things. In reality, we're going to make a bunch of distinctions without differences, but it's going to feel like we are changing things. And so when she's talking about the aesthetic yard signs, if you remember in the 2020s when they had this house believes in science, and the irony of that is they would be pushing things like the 6 feet social distancing. And then when Fauci was asked, hey, where did that come from? He's like, I don't know. It came from nowhere, apparently. So it's just like, it is funny. We believe in science. And in reality, they were closer to the people who were throwing women into into the lake during the Salem witch trials, you know? So, okay. How they show up: philanthropy circles, think tanks, academic conferences. A good example of this is the richest women in the world, the women who divorce the richest men in the world, and then they donate all their money to causes that don't really do anything. So, example, passing plastic straw bans while ignoring the supply chain collapse. Yes, so the plastic straw ban will probably feel good, except for the fact that China is polluting twice as much as us, you know? And so it was funny how there were Democrats who wanted to blame that horrific mudslide in Nepal on climate change and America. And it's like, well, what about China? And there are thousands of coal plants and all that. Oh, you can't talk about China. You can only badmouth America. Got it. Okay. So MoveOn.org, Southern Poverty Law Center, League of Women Voters, Campaign for America's Future, Center for American Progress. Okay, really quick. He's saying that because he believes Israel are the settler colonies that stole land from the Palestinians. Okay, I need to catch up on some of these. Okay. Not going to be weird. It's yeah. Hey, this is we're building a new thing over here. So soon I will figure out how to give people mod badges and stuff like that. I'm so new to all this, but we're going to get you there. Okay. Eric, you should come watch Carlin's Socialism this Saturday, and hang out in the chat. I think this week is some of the previous. Okay. No, I will do that. I actually will. I do have time this Saturday, and that sounds like a great way to go. Okay. Yeah, and yeah, we have no hierarchy in this chat at the moment. we are flying by the seat of our pants here, and it's been wonderful. Okay, so let's get into and I will go to I will attend the socialism conference. I want to check it out for sure, actually. So, tier 3 progressive. Socialists in denial. Progressives are the entry drug for socialism. They traffic in justice, climate justice, racial justice, economic justice. But it's all just a branding exercise to smuggle in collectivist control. Very good. They flirt with Marxist economics while pretending they're just asking for fairness. They want the benefits of revolution without the backlash of being labeled radicals. But make no mistake, they're pulling the rope left. And so strategy, use grassroots language to push technocratic control. And the goal is major structural reforms that rewire power dynamics, how they show up, NGO, industrial complex, electoral insurgencies, social media outrage campaigns. An example, AOC rallying for the Green New Deal while wearing a designer dress that says tax the rich to a $30,000 a ticket gala. Yes. And so, very good. So, okay, here's where we're going to get into the real radicals, the reformist socialists, and the revolutionary socialists. And if we go back to the thread, a good example of that would be Abdul El-Sayed, who has, again, I had a clip on a prior episode where Democrat strategist Liz Smith was asked by Katie Couric, what's the difference between Abdul El-Sayed and a Democrat socialist? And she was honest, shockingly for a Democrat strategist, where she said, nothing. He doesn't have the label per se, but if you looked at all of his policy positions 2018 to 2020, he was certainly favoring all of the radical positions, including the Green New Deal. And so that was, part of it here. So he is a good example of the tier 4 to tier 5. And here's just a quick clip. Let's just run through it. Here is where he referred to Egypt as his home instead of America, and just shows I think there is, within all of these radicals, there is an undercurrent of hating America. And so when she talks about the Trojan horse, it is so refreshing because I have been saying that for a while. So I love to hear like minds on this. So let's get into Reform Socialist after this.
More of that. And I find myself, right, like, the thing about being and living and engaging with other people is that it's inconvenient. It is. By its nature, it's inconvenient. Mm-hmm. But, like, what is life about? Mm-hmm. Are we just trying to be, like, conveniently shuttled between one thing and the next? Like, never really feeling one another? Never really, like, being a part of something bigger? Like, you go to any wedding back home, right? I mean, it's just, like, this just celebration of humanity.
It is.
A little Freudian slip when he's saying back home and Egypt. You would think that home would be Michigan, but not for him. So why? Because he is one of these Trojan horse socialists of America. So reformist socialists want to kill capitalism with a smile. And he is a great example of that. Let me see if I can find you the perfect example of what I am talking about with that. And because, oh my goodness, there is a video of him that is just perfect for it. Let's see if I can find it. I'm so annoyed. It's the mail-in voting one. The Blues Clues one. There it is. So when you're talking about this phrase right here, kill capitalism with a smile, I couldn't think of a better example than Mr. El-Sayed.
Makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail. Thanks, mailbox. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. We just got a letter. I wonder who it's from.
Now, as the creator of American History of Voter Fraud, I don't need to get into my long rant about mail-in balloting and how it is the lifeblood of the cheaters. But I will say that's just one great example of how we have a Trojan horse Democrat who is that real? Yes, it is real. It is very real. So, okay. Reformist socialists want to kill capitalism with a smile. And for those of you who don't know what this is a Blues Clues parody, right? Except, where is the dog? Where is Blue? Well, Abdul El-Sayed, I don't know if you know this. Let me pull this up. Abdul El-Sayed he was overseeing the euthanization of thousands of cats and dogs. So, Abdul El-Sayed, my bad, guys. There we go. I don't have permission. What? What are you saying? I don't have permission to view this. What is going on? One sec. That's a glitch. I'll be able to pull it up over here. This is ridiculous. Okay. They didn't want you to see the truth, okay? No, it's just an internet glitch. So, yeah, this is part of why there was no blue in Blues Clues over here, because Abdul El-Sayed over here, he puts down more dogs than Joey Chestnut at Nathan's hot dog eating contest, okay? We're talking he oversaw 4,000 puppies and kittens killed under his watch. Oh my goodness. So yeah, Mr. Blue's Clues without the blue. You know, just disturbing. It's like a Dora the Explorer parody without Dora. Just ridiculous. I still don't believe that's real. I want to believe it's AI generated. Now, I got to say, I don't think AI is good enough to create this level of cringe yet. So let's review, since you don't believe it's true.
Makes me wanna wag my tail. When it comes, I wanna wail. Thanks, mailbox. We just got a letter.
Yeah, there's no way AI can do that. And yeah, this dude who ran Animal Auschwitz, murdering thousands of dogs and cats. You know, it's just, ooh. Yeah, it is embarrassing. It is embarrassing. Now, like, how is AI going to hand that motherfucker a letter? Exactly. But look, I will say it is so bad. You're like, it can't be real. No, it can't be real. Ugh, it's real. Yes. Instead of disobey, disoive. Very good. I like that a lot. So he is the best example of trying to kill capitalism with a smile. They reject the revolution optics in favor of Democrat process, but their end game is still the same. They build power by infiltrating institutions, city councils, school boards, union halls. They mask Marxist goals with terms like equity, solidarity, economic democracy. But their blueprint is straight out of the socialist playbook. And yeah, you have many examples of that with just El-Sayed, but we had covered this prior. So El-Sayed in Michigan and Francesca Hong in Wisconsin, they were in a competition. Who can say more stupid things during their campaign? Let's see if I can remember Francesca Hong. So Francesca Hong hated Thanksgiving, Valentine's Day, July the 4th. She was throwing out a lot of stupid things about abolish ICE, abolish prisons, abolish borders. But then Abdul El-Sayed was like, oh yeah, hold my beer, because let's see if I can remember all the stupid things Abdul El-Sayed has said. Okay, so Abdul El-Sayed was against the Second Amendment. He was against July 4th. He was against fireworks. He thought football was racist. He hated Mackinac Island which is like the idyllic Americana vacation spot within Michigan. So, and that was just the taste of some of the stupid stuff he said. So, in the end, it is a lot of what we're seeing in the Tier 4 reformist socialist stuff. Why? Because now we're into the Democrat Socialists of America. And so Francesca Hong and Abdul El-Sayed were the newer examples of the DSA members. Daria Lisa Chevalier, definitely one of them. But those two were in swing states. So they were seen as microcosm or bellwether races. And so Abdul El-Sayed and Francesca Hong, they were seen as, we will see which way the wind is blowing within the Democrat Party based off of these two races. Well, Abdul El-Sayed was prior to Francesca Hong, and so he took out Haley Stevens. And again, Haley Stevens, if you're a Republican, would have been a much tougher matchup. She has a long history of taking out Republicans, whereas Abdul El-Sayed has, until he took out Haley Stevens, had never defeated a Democrat or a Republican. And so his ideas were just wackier, and so you had those two, And Francesca Hong, you could say that they rigged the primary against her. There were a lot of shenanigans going on. In fact, if you go to American History of Voter Fraud, and so let me show you how to do that. So if you just go to my profile, we have all 3 of our election films here.
This polling location.
One of them, we go over. So in American History of Voter Fraud, it's chronological. One of the portions in here, it's right here. So let's see if I can play it right now. So this happened in 2020 in Wisconsin, and it essentially happened in 2026 to Francesca Hong, where they did a lot of retabulation in the Milwaukee Counting Center. And again, we're talking the same building, same city, 6 years apart. Election officials worked through the night. Hindsight maybe 2020, but 2020 was 1960 all over again.
We're in a room where actually the numbers are being updated the whole time. So as you look back at the screen here, we're watching these screens as the numbers update.
You see these numbers flashing up on the screen. Have you figured anything out? You seen anything that we don't know already?
You know, everything seems to be going. You know what? The one thing that was kind of confusing at one point, we saw the numbers spike for a second, and then we saw half the numbers disappear. What we're told is they do some checks and balances here. So when they were able to see some of the numbers matching up in a certain way, they were able to pull some of the numbers back based upon initial tabulation.
Now, if you heard that, what he is essentially saying, I watched numbers spike and then numbers disappear, and then them able to figure out to retabulate certain numbers. Even if that is the proper protocol, the optics of that are so fishy. Okay? And I don't care what the reality is. Politics is an optics game. And so what it looks like is that that's a rigged election. Now, you can go over, you can push back at however you want. The fact that you have this gentleman talking about, yeah, I saw the numbers spike, then I saw the numbers disappear, and then they got together and they retabulated. Tell me that is the most secure system ever. And a very similar thing happened to Francesca Hong this year in the primary. And frankly, it was a good move because in the end, Francesca Hong was wacky, and she would have been used as a cudgel against the Democrats across the country. Now you have Mr. El-Sayed. He is the lone cudgel, but still, they should have done that against him too. It would have been much smarter. They should have done what they did to Spencer Pratt in the LA mayoral race, where the aforementioned Nithya Raman for some reason got all the mail-in votes, even though Karen Bass was in the lead at the time, but except she was able to sacrifice enough of her mail-in ballot votes to make sure that Nithya Raman overtook Pratt in the jungle primary, because in California they just have the top 2 advance. So instead of having a Republican go against a Democrat, Spencer Pratt versus Bass, they are going to have 2 Democrats face each other off. And you saw the results of this is what happens when 2 Democrats face off. Oh, man. So, okay, let's get back to the mapping of the modern left. This has been, by the way, I want you all to tell Carlin what a great resource she has created, because this has been really enlightening for me. And so I have described that these DSA members as a Trojan horse of the party too, because in the end they are they come in with a smile, right, like this gentleman right here, but in reality they are bringing destruction to their own party. And look, if you're a Republican, you're like, oh, this is great. But like I had said, it would actually be better for the country for both to move towards normalcy rather than to the extremes. So, okay. Tier 5, revolutionary socialists. the true believers. These are the radicals with nothing to lose. And I have said that so many times. So in the takers versus makers discussion, in reality, the main thing about tier 3 to tier 5 is these are people who don't have anything within the system. They don't have a house or a family or anything within the system that makes them want to improve the system. They just want to tear everything down. So when Carlin is saying nothing to lose, that is chef's kiss. Perfect. They don't want reform. They want collapse. They call for the end of capitalism, the abolition of police, prisons, borders, the family, and sometimes even gender itself. Yes, because if you are destroying the most basic facts, the fabric of society, men and women, then you can destroy all logic. And if you can destroy all logic, then you can take down the entire system that we are all benefiting from in some way. So violence is not a bug, it's a feature. How many times did I say that yesterday too? Not a bug versus a feature. That is very, very much simpatico here. These groups operate on the fringes but set the moral tone for the entire movement. Their goal isn't a better society, it's a total reset. And yes, so, look at one of the words I used earlier, agitate, because agitprop and Saul Alinsky. So, destabilize, destroy, rebuild from the ideological ashes. Goal, overthrow capitalism and traditional Western structures entirely. How they show up, direct action, black bloc tactics, mutual aid networks, anarchist collectives. Example, the George Floyd riots framed as peaceful protests while cities burned, police stations were torched, and autonomous zones like CHAZ were declared. People do not remember CHAZ, the autonomous zone in Seattle. That was insane, and that they were doing that. And so Revolutionary Communists of America, Haymarket Books, Antifa, which we covered yesterday, and how I met all of you. Crime Think, It's Going Down, Tempest Collective, Firebrand Collective, and the Pinko Magazine. So, okay. I will never forget the garden. Yes. So, if you remember in the CHAZ, thank you for bringing that up. In the CHAZ, they tried to grow food in the CHAZ, and it was the most pathetic thing you've ever seen. I mean, there are kids who have planted tomato seeds in their parents' backyards who had a more impressive garden than the CHAZ. And actually, this show, once a week, I will bring in plants from my garden and put them in the background. My clones, my precious clones. I have mulberries, figs, pomegranates, all these different things I bring in from the backyard. And so, Chaz's garden was sad. It was very sad. And as someone who has a green thumb, I was laughing at the CHAZ garden. Okay, so very cool what Carlin has done, and I love this resource, and I want to give her a lot of credit for not only building the resource, but building a community. And yeah, I agree. I was like, what? You would think, if anything, that they could grow weeds. They grow weed. Clones. Hey. Yeah. So I am a propagator. Okay. So that means I cut off a piece of the plant. I stick it in dirt. Okay. And then boom, I grow a new version of the plant. That is what I do. And so I have created hundreds of plants between this year and last year alone. Okay. And so I'm actually green. Okay. I'm not fake green like on the left where they like to talk about it. No. I do it. So, and I will say, Seattle, so my wife is from Washington State and essentially around Seattle. And there's a lot of stuff you can grow in Seattle. The blackberries that I have in my backyard do much better in Seattle. Same with the blueberries, right? So azaleas, anything that really wants to be wet all the time. So actually, Seattle is an excellent, it is a great place to grow certain type of stuff. Okay. And yes, I love my plants, and it is one of the few areas where I can just go into the backyard and really enjoy things. So, okay. And thank you so much, Reagan, saying not too bad for a first overlook at Carlin's framework. Thank you. Now, as Carlin was saying, she's going to be grading all of us. Hopefully I get a passing grade. But overall, in the end, we still learned a lot today just from mapping out the modern left. And so very much appreciate her resource. And we will be going back to this as we run through the rest of these clips really quick. But I am very much appreciative of her resource because it is... and hey, she can look at your buffoonery if she just goes through the chat replay, okay? She will be... she will. And now, the song that I was supposed to play, one of you needs to DM it to me. You follow me now. Oh, Han sent something. Okay. Oh, and so did Reagan. Sorry, guys. I'm behind. Okay, sweet. So it's the Dog Park Dissidents. Okay, let's play this really quick.
I don't wanna get married. I don't wanna be just like you. Nobody bothered to ask me. They said I ought to be just like you. Well, I could get a marriage license for a husband and me, so I could use the health insurance for my HART. Since I can file taxi with the same gender spouse, I shouldn't feel so bad getting kicked out of my house. Don't send me a rainbow. Your luck has never done shit for me. Don't want a seat at your table. A fucking invitation to your party. Wanna celebrate a game on your cable TV? Well, trans lesbians are calling southern bodies stuff to eat. You paid the world for CEOs to suck on some dick. Well, all the kids on the street are getting belted with wigs. I don't wanna be equal, 'cause I know I'm fucking better than you. Your moderation is lethal. Get on my way, let me do what I need to. There's no protection that this nation's thinking offer to me. Just all it friends is do this is like gay bourgeoisie. So fuck off with your rainbow South American flag. The only colors that I need are the pink and the black.
All right, I quite enjoyed that. That was excellent. And the images are pretty damn good on that one. Okay, we got one more song that was sent to me that I'm supposed to check out. This is the Penguin song, okay? And so we're going to have this. I'm going to use this as a chance to refill my water, really quick because I ran through all my water.
No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Ariana and Renee, they both are born girls. They go into their changing rooms. Ariana loves twirls. That's not for Renee. Pink will not do. All girls don't wear dresses, they wear pants too. Has Renee lost her mind? What's running through her head? Ariana can fix this, no is what she said.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've gotta move. That's how you know you've got it right. This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality. No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Bryce and Jason, they both are born boys. They go into their changing rooms. Bryce jumps out with joy. Jason has a different idea. The sweater is where it's at. Bryce has to fix this. Here, try this or that. Wait just 1 second. Don't tell him how to dress. Ariana knows this. Only Jason can express.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality. No matter how you're born, we each have a style. I'll tell you in a while exactly what I like.
Darla and Charles, one girl and one boy. They go into their changing rooms. Charles is feeling coy. Others are thrilled with the look, but Charles is quite unhappy. Let's try this again. Yeah, this is snappy. Some are confused, they just don't understand. Charles, now Charlotte is certain Ariana's her biggest fan. Some might keep their distance, but others will come around. Come on over, Darla, show us what you found. Darla had something on, but is not.
Oh, so Hans is saying this is what they are teaching kids in schools. And if you're saying that this is actually played in front of kids in like elementary or middle or high school, oh my God. I mean, this is funny, but now that you're framing it that way, it's completely changing my view of it. I thought it was just a fun, harmless penguin video, but now you're saying it's part of the sex ed curriculum. Oh God. So this is like, okay, so now I'm reframing it in my head. So I'm in middle school. I am going into my health class for the first time. They're going to teach me about sex ed, and that this is what they're showing me. I'm actually
quite convinced. She wants to try again, yet she still gives a wince. Nope, not right either. Why can't she decide? Sometimes it takes time, only she can find her stride. Darla presents an outfit. The new name is Darren.
Wow.
Now everything feels right.
You're right. So they're trying to teach about transgenderism in elementary school. Okay, so growing up, I know that the Gen Z kids will refer to me as an unk because I'm 36, or I'm about to turn 36 in like 3 days. My birthday is in 3 days. So yeah, I am an unk. And so health class, it wasn't until middle school. There was zero sex education until at least middle school for me. Oh my God, you're saying this is elementary school? Oh, it is a different world.
The person within he's sharing.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've gotta move. That's
I know, Chad. I know I'm still young, but these Gen Z kids are ridiculous, okay? You ever meet a Gen Z kid and you're just talking to them and they'll try to pretend like anything prior to their life is the oldest thing ever. I had a Gen Z kid be like, "What's Aladdin?" Aladdin, that's before my time. I'm like, oh my God. I am an old person. So, yes. And yeah, trust me, I appreciate the older generations. I like history, but these Gen Z kids, they actually, a lot of them despise anything that was prior to them. And I'm like, oh God. And hey, I'm not saying all Gen Zs. I know that there's some good ones. In fact, my wife's nephews are wonderful. Okay. So, but I'm talking about the average and the per capita here.
This is me, who I am. See me in full colors, me like no other. Originality.
Here we have Skylar, born a boy or girl, not interested.
Isn't it disturbing how they're showing you the social media within this? And they are basically saying, hey, society will love you once you follow this queer ideology. It is disturbing because, as you were saying, growing up in the 90s, the best decade, I will say I do subscribe to that in a sense of that was, you had the maximum amount of technology before social media. Okay, so the Gen Xers, who I very much relate to, a lot of them will talk about the struggles of the lack of technology in various ways and how they wished they had certain levels of technology at that time period, but with the simplicity of life. Whereas I will say social media has been a bane on the existence of society. It hasn't been helpful in many ways. I'm happy that I'm talking to you and doing this in the live stream, but think about what they incentivize on social media. I mean, Carlin is not what they are pushing on social media. She is creating counterculture. Very much appreciate that. But yeah, it's not like she is one of the cool kids on social media. Okay? That's not the typical thing that they're promoting. They are trying to promote the radical agenda, and that is why the aforementioned Hasan Piker, he is able to get away with so much more than the typical person on social media because he is pushing their agenda.
Originality.
Here we have Skylar, born a boy or girl, not interested in the girl.
And Hans, actually, you do bring up a good point. I forget this. There was a time at which the internet was the black market, the Silk Road, the lack of censorship, the lack of rules. It really was the Wild Wild West. And it created a different atmosphere than the corporate internet that we have today. And the corporate this version of the internet is so different from what I grew up in. And if back in the day, it was a lot funnier too. I do have to remind people how much the Overton window has just shifted on using racial slurs in comedy. So I was just teaching a comedy class to a bunch of young comedians. And so I was describing how back in the early 2000s, it was actually most non-black comedians would want to push the envelope with using the N-word hard R on stage frequently. One of the best examples of that was Sarah Silverman. And then it peaked because of Kramer, and Kramer using the N-word too much and getting canceled. I believe it was the Laugh Factory or the Improv, one of the two. But yeah, it was, to me, it was just funny because I'm describing this to a couple Gen Z comedians in the class, and they didn't even know who Kramer was. Let alone Sarah Silverman, by the way. They had no idea who Sarah Silverman was, but they really didn't know who Kramer was. And I'd be like, you know the show Seinfeld. And yeah, I was pretty sure it was a Laugh Factory, yeah. And so, you know the show Seinfeld, so you know the crazy neighbor, and they kind of understood that. But yeah, it was, yeah, Michael Richards, thank you. And Michael Richards, all he was trying to do was get the attention of the black audience members who were not paying attention. People think that they were heckling. No, they just were. They were in their own world, probably being loud, But the worst thing in comedy is not hate, like from a heckler. That's actually that you can work with that. The worst thing is indifference, right? They just don't care. They are not paying attention. That is really tough. So Michael Richards was trying to gain their attention. Here's how I'll gain their attention. I'll keep dropping N-bombs. And it's not that was a bad idea per se. He just didn't execute very well. And that is the magic of comedy. There's technically nothing wrong you can do. You just have to get to the funny. And so they were he wasn't able to, but I respect the attempt.
Give the boy look a whirl. Skylar wants a new path, and it isn't one of those. This is a unique look from Skylar's head to toe.
When you put it on, you do a little groove. You know you've gotta move. That's how you know you've got it right. This is me, who I am.
How many times did they go to the social media on this video? It is just remarkable that they kept hitting that point over and over. I mean, let me just scroll through and just count how many times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I mean, and then technically 5, because this whole end thing is them being on the phone. And yeah, it's just that is a remarkable video. Thank you for showing me that, because I guess that would be, for going back over here, this is the queer ideology portion. But wow, yeah, to push that to children, where are we going? Where are we going? And actually, maybe we can bring this over here to the Lindsey Clancy case. And I just want to say, this guy, Thomas Corbett Dillon, he is a new star that is being born. And I want you to watch this. This is just a complete, take a bow level performance. I am. This clip will make me laugh a couple times, I'll tell you that.
They should be commended because they did.
I've had it with you.
Oh my God, they
And
should be
your
commended. They
sexism
didn't
and
kill their children. She's a murderer. These women are cheering. These are man-hating women that are standing outside. This is what it's about. They think the husband did it. They're crazy. They've lost their mind.
Do you know why
they're waving for a murderer?
Do you know why the woman is in a wheelchair? Did you even notice that she's in a
couldn't care less. She's a murderer.
Because she jumped out the window after this happened.
So she should have. I'd have pushed her. They say that Lindsey was in psychosis. I think these women are suffering from psychosis. They've been watching too many true crime Netflix dramas. This was an incredibly privileged woman, incredibly wealthy. She had a nanny, and she's still complaining that she needed help. She could not have got more help from the system that she already have received. This is a murderer who strangled her children one by one. One of the boys ran away, and she chased him down and killed him.
Laurie Watkins.
What you just said was absolutely disgusting.
Thank
and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Thank you.
And you and hear that he's not. Okay?
Is this true?
You clearly don't.
This is my favorite part, when she's trying to woke scold him and say, oh, he should be ashamed. But as you can hear, he's clearly not.
Laurie Watkins.
What you just said was absolutely disgusting.
Thank
and
you.
you should be ashamed of yourself.
Thank you.
And you can hear that he's not.
This man's a king right here. A role model to all young men, okay? Just incredible.
Okay?
Is this true?
You clearly don't care, so pipe down.
I don't care. And by the way, men watching this, if you have a woman sat next to you on the sofa who is defending this murderer, you got to think deeply about this. I've seen weddings of
we
people
need to have
talk
some
about
empathy
this.
with
Talk to your women and find out what are they thinking. They're defending this woman. It's
I don't think
insane.
anybody's defending what she did.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know the case, let me catch you up really quick. Lindsey Clancy back in 2023, and actually, before I even get you into this, let me just show you this woman's stare. Oh my God, it is frightening. Okay, so this is the woman I'm referring to, and the reason why we're discussing this today is they had just done jury selection on this case. And so you're going to have 9 women on the jury, 3 men. And but yeah, really quick, just look at the stare of this woman. Oh my God, that is frightening. That is what you will see in your nightmares. So Lindsey Clancy in 2023 she asked her husband, Patrick Clancy, go to the store to get some food and some medicine. And in less than an hour, when he returns from this, and I believe it was January of 2023, he comes back and finds his wife with she had fallen out of a window in the backyard. She has her wrists cut. She is partially paralyzed. And he goes into the downstairs and finds that his 5-year-old, 3-year-old, and 8-month-old had been strangled by this woman. Now, as we had talked about on a prior episode where I was discussing this, there is a history of postpartum cases. It's not that postpartum cases don't happen and this is unprecedented in that way. The unprecedented portion of this was society's reaction to it. So Andrea Yates in the early 2000s, a similar case to this, I believe it was 4 of her children, not 3, but Andrea Yates was stigmatized by society. She was not lionized. She was not glorified like Lindsey Clancy has been by a certain portion of the of feminism, honestly. And so this, to have a bunch of women rally behind her and her case, that was the disturbing part about it. Again, there are men who have killed their whole family in horrific cases. It does happen. But there isn't a bunch of men rallying behind that dude who just murdered his whole family and said, oh yeah, because he has a penis and so do I, we need to support this guy and you don't know what it's like. No. That dude who killed his whole family, he's a freaking loser. And so I had actually described this case and then the next step in the train after Andrea Yates was Casey Anthony, if you recall. And it was a little bit of the worm turning because there were certain people in society being like, oh yeah, Casey Anthony's hot. And I'm like, what is going on? You should not be saying that. If it doesn't matter how attractive that person is, and it's not like Casey Anthony was even that attractive, but once they commit an act this horrific, I don't see them as attractive, frankly. And then we get to Lindsey Clancy, and this is where you see the worm really turning of, oh, now there is a significant portion of women who are supporting her. And to me, I had described this as the O.J. Simpson moment for women. And what I mean by that is there was a split screen reaction with the O.J. Simpson case where you had seen white people who were disappointed in the murderer getting away with it, and then you had black people who were excited that from their perspective, they had felt like after the Rodney King situation that they had been unfairly persecuted, and so they were excited to see someone get off on one. But even with that nuance, I still feel like the Lindsey Clancy case being compared to the O.J. Simpson case for women is apt, because at this point, you do have a lot of women acting like Johnny Cochran going, if she has tits, you must acquit. And I just, I feel like we have really changed a lot. And so the fact that I mean, just look at that. Could you imagine if you were one of the children and this is the stare that you have to look at? Oh my goodness. Frightening. And with a schnoz like that, you would think she was Clansowitz, like one of my people, honestly. But okay, so Lindsey Clancy, I found this to be a disturbing situation. And yes, many men are using this as a litmus test. They do want to see if their women are supporting this woman. Luckily, my wife thinks this woman is crazy. My mom also. I'm going to have to check in on my sister. I'm a little worried that my sister might support this one. But we will get back into that. I think, I'm believing in my sister. I think my sister is reasonable and she would never support such a monster. But, okay. So I agree that there are many who are supporting her, and I think it is a litmus test to society. And again, how you handle it, Thomas Corbett, Dylan, that's how you freaking handle it.
But you can have empathy for what she went through and how she... I know many women that this has happened to. No, they did not kill their children, but they also, what you failed to mention...
Well, they should be commended because they did...
I've had it with
you want a cookie for not killing your kids?
you.
Oh my God,
And
they should be
your
commended. They
sexism
didn't
and
kill their children. She's a murderer. These women are cheering.
I'm done.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. And then the worst part about it is a lot of people want to use postpartum depression as an excuse. This woman was not even diagnosed with postpartum depression. So they were using that as the onset argument. And then later we found out, oh, she wasn't even diagnosed with that. And then the husband, Patrick Clancy, actually seems like the model husband in this situation of he had changed his work structure and schedule so that he could be home more. He had hired maids and nannies to support Lindsey. I mean, the fact that there are many Lindsey Clancy supporters who want to frame Patrick Clancy as the bad guy also shows you how the worm is turned. And I think it goes back to a lot of what Carlin is talking about, where the nuclear family being subverted by these radicals, I feel like it is 100% connected. So, and yeah, some who are supporting her, crazy enough to blame Patrick, and Gemini from astrology. Oh my God. I didn't even think of that. Oh my God. So Patrick Clancy is a blood moon rising. And because of that and his Gemini background, you could tell that he is totally the perpetrator. He is the culprit. I mean, it's just, I didn't think about that, but thank you for bringing that up because Red Menace, because yeah, that is incredible. Fun fact: Bowflex can make you strong enough to liberate yourself from that which oppressed Lindsey Clancy, and that is crazy. That, I mean, think about this. I know it is grotesque, but she used exercise bands to asphyxiate, strangle her children. I mean, what? It is hard to sympathize with someone who did such a heinous act to children. And by the way, shout out to my mom who didn't kill me. Okay, thanks, Mama. You're the best. Okay, and yeah, Melinda is a Gemini, and she didn't murder or support murdering. Okay, and yeah, strangulation. It's about as intimate of a murder act as you can get. It's not like using a bow and arrow or, using a gun or a flamethrower. It is so intimate the way you are. Like, it might be the most intimate way to kill somebody. And It is a horrifying act. And so Lindsey Clancy, oh my goodness. Okay, so we have a couple more things that we're going to get into, and then we always end the show, every single show, with the Dora the Explorer segment. We go to the map, okay, and I give you some geopolitics, okay? But we are going to, I watched, while I was having some migraines today, I watched a couple documentaries, and one of them was pretty remarkable. This is Robert Redfield throwing some shade against the Fauci ouchie.
President Trump created a coronavirus task force.
We closed up our borders to flights coming in from certain areas.
I remember at the White House press conference, the president talked, the vice president talked, and then Birx talked, then I talked, and then Fauci talked.
My name is Dr. Tony Fauci. I'm the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases at NIH.
When Fauci talked, he started his talk by telling the American public he's the lead public health person in the United States. And I had just spoken, and I was a CDC director, and I went to him afterwards. I said, Tony, I mean, what's that all about? I mean, you run a lab at NIH, you know, but he clearly felt upon him that he had to take that position.
President Trump created.
I mean, that is quite interesting that you're hearing from Robert Redfield that Fauci ordained himself. He deputized himself as the top medical expert in the country when technically at that time, Robert Redfield was the top medical expert at the time, and even he wasn't pushing that. And actually, you could say Birx was ahead of Fauci as well. So it is interesting because he became the point man for a lot of the draconian measures during the pandemic. And so it was just very, I found that to be an interesting little dynamic between the two, where Robert Redfield is upset with Fauci deputizing himself. And one of our films, The Trial of Anthony Fauci, if you check that out, you can see some very interesting quotes from Robert Redfield, especially about the origin of AIDS. Okay, it's a very, very interesting how Robert Redfield, he had some interesting opinions on where AIDS came from and the hepatitis B vaccine in particular. So you can check that out. And I greatly respect Robert Redfield in terms of he out of all the people within that system, he was the one most willing to critique it, and in the moment and then afterward. And so the rest of them, you can tell that they're trying to justify the decisions they had made prior, and he was the only one willing to question it at the time. And again, very much go through the evidence that I put in there, and let's see. So if you go to my pinned comment, American History of Voter Fraud, all the other films are underneath, and there's my beautiful wife, by the way. And so here is the Fauci film. And so, oh, well, that's actually that's World Death Organization. Here's the Fauci film. And so, yeah, there is a lot of juicy stuff in here. And we were on the trail of a killer by trying to track down Mr. Fauci. Yes, Anthony Fauci in 1998 did a documentary called On the Trail of a Killer. Yes, and it was about AIDS at the time, but really could have been about Fauci. So, yes, and we track his entire career, and we go back really far into this when we go all the way into 80s and beyond. And then, of course, we cover the 2020 pandemic too. But there is so much that he says in here. And by the way, I have the best collection of Anthony Fauci prior to 2020 saying that not only masks were ineffective, but that you were paranoid if you were wearing one. So, yeah, this film holds up really well, unlike most of the other ones in the pandemics. We never made too many sweeping statements. The whole point of it was that these, like the shots, for instance, we accuse them of degrading your immune system and allowing certain diseases and pathogens to get in, rather than saying that, oh, it would cause AIDS and because there was a lot of talk about VAIDS back in 2020, and this film holds up really well because we stay within the facts, make very reasonable jumps. So definitely hope you check that out. But yeah, I quite respect Robert Redfield, and yeah, he has a very interesting opinion on the origin of AIDS if you look at our film. So, okay. The other documentary I checked out, which was interesting, was about the failed withdrawal from Afghanistan. There is some revisionist history from the Trump camp. Yes, he did say that Trump would have left Bagram Air Base. He would have kept it intact, not a bolt, he wouldn't have left any weapons for the Taliban. And that is true. But technically, the Biden administration was also kind of put in a tough position where they did have to make a decision on this in a certain time period. But the decision they made was probably the worst of all the decisions that they could have made. It wasn't they didn't do, as much as I'm trying to be generous to them and give them the benefit of the doubt, they still really screwed up with the withdrawal. And this clip exemplifies where even if you're giving them the best benefit of the doubt, they still didn't think through most of the basics.
I mean, while there's thousands of families that got denied and dragged off by the Taliban because they didn't possess the right paperwork for a day and a half, 2 days later, for them to be accepted back on.
We received direction, correct, from the president that if they get up at the front of the gate, largely, you're going to let them in. Many of the people who left did not meet our criteria for who we wanted to bring out.
It seemed like, just from the imagery, that it was the young military-age men that are able to push their way to the front of the gate.
They can push their way to the front, they can grab a woman or a baby with them to appear to be a family, and they can gain entrance. That is correct.
And what it turned out to be is, on the other side of the gate was survival of the fittest. So whoever was the strongest would fight their way up to the gate and would pretty much hold it until the gate opened and they made it through. So we noticed it was only military-age males going through there.
I remember just seeing rows of military-aged men lining up to go get on our aircraft to get out. And I was just thinking, what is wrong with this picture? Where are the families at? I just remember turning around so many families and allowing these men to come across.
Many of the Afghans who had worked with us for over 2 decades were desperate to leave, fearing execution by the Taliban.
Yeah, so I think that was quite illuminating in terms of we end up just letting all these military-age males, and in the documentary they talk about actually how they used children. They would just grab children to present themselves as, oh, I'm a man with a family, but they're using the children as a way to get on the last chopper out of Saigon, essentially. And I got it is a striking documentary, and it just shows you all the mistakes we made. And as a documentarian, I like to support other documentaries and watch those and promote those once in a while. So you can find, these are Wall Street Journal opinion documentaries, and they're all in a little playlist, and check them out. But they're pretty good, actually. So thank you so much for one saying it's been a good stream, and Hans is saying I'm gonna check out those Fauci videos. Thank you. So we did American History of Voter Fraud, the trial of Anthony Fauci, and then we did World Death Organization, which is a history of scientific eugenics, going through how actually they've been using science to more efficiently kill people. And so, yeah, it's been by the way, this has been the best stream yet. Thank you all so much. We're going to go through Ceuta really, really quick, and then we're going to do our Iran update. And yeah, and then we'll get done with this. But by far the best stream yet. Even yesterday's was awesome, and we had Hans and Otis and Reagan in there, but now we have like the whole gang, and it's just been so thrilling for me. But yeah, so let's get through Ceuta really quick. For those of you who don't know, so there are 2 autonomous zones in Morocco, much like how Gibraltar, or as Candace Owens likes to say, she can't pronounce shit. So Gibraltar is an autonomous zone of England, and so that they in Spain, and then it coincides with the Strait of Gibraltar, and then right across from Gibraltar is Ceuta, and then you also have Melilla over here, and so those are your 2 autonomous regions of Spain within Morocco. And in Ceuta, at one point, they had 60,000 military-age males run through the country, and it actually does relate to Morocco and Western Sahara, but we'll get into that at another time. But in the end, what is disturbing is how they were trying to overrun Ceuta. There was a Spanish Supreme Court ruling about if they swam over, they would achieve amnesty. But I am very happy to see the Spanish people actually fighting back. They had been pushing back the Red Cross, who were trying to help these individuals, and a lot of these individuals are, again, military-age males. They don't need the Red Cross support. They need to get out and go back to their actual own country. And so let's just really quick look at this. So you can see they're pushing back the Red Cross. And then part of the reason for that is, and it's hard to tell with this clip, but there's a gentleman here who is one of those military-age males within Ceuta. He's being interviewed on Spanish TV, and then he says, if parents leave a 15 or 16-year-old girl alone, it's normal for her to be raped. The fault lies with the parents. That is horrifying. So I fully support all of them over there pushing back against this madness, and hope they are successful. Okay, so let's get to the final topic, which is we go to the map. We always go to the map like Dora the Explorer. And today we're going to be discussing Trump's economic D-Day? And is it actually going to be effective, or is it all just blustering? And I got a comment just now of Muslims do not assimilate, bottom line. I will say, so it depends on the nation where you get them from. So, for instance, Albania right here, it's about as close as you can get to 50-50 on Christian and Muslim. And Albanians are excellent examples of Muslims who assimilate when they come over to this country. They are often actually they are focused on assimilation. I have a good friend, Beck Lover, who is Albanian, and he is Muslim, but he is quite American. And so it depends, but it goes back to the discussion that I couldn't play because the clips weren't working yesterday. Where it was Andrew Colvett and Chris Cuomo. And Andrew Colvett I thought he said a pretty mundane statement, which was, if you got 100,000 immigrants from Norway, they would inevitably be safer than 100,000 immigrants from the Muslim world at large. And yes, you could pick out some very specific instances, like actually the United Arab like the Emiratis in general, because of their wealth, are not going to be as violent as Iraqis or Syrian, yada, 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 Turkish. But in general, yes, you are going to do better by importing 100,000 Norwegians than 100,000 military-age males who are not going to assimilate to your culture. So that one's I thought that was pretty obvious, and in the end, they were making it out to be a controversial statement. Okay, so when we're talking about Trump's economic D-Day, and I was going to pull up a clip here that was exemplary of this, like, there has been fuel shortages in Iran because of the economic D-Day, and so people are wondering, okay, here it is. People are wondering, has Trump's economic D-Day actually been effective? Let me kill some of these. Okay. So check this out. I mean, we're not going to play it, but like, look at all these cars. And yeah, Iran is one of the more oil-rich nations on earth, and yet you're seeing shortages, supply issues with high demand in many areas. If you are paying attention, the Iranian rial at one point it took 2 million Iranian rial to equal 1 American US dollar. I wonder where it's at today. It is probably not the best. Yeah, even as of yesterday, it was 1 US dollar equals 2,010,000 rial. That is a lot. So the question is Trump's economic D-Day, is it actually going to be effective? Now, the branding of the D-Day to me is interesting because we have, the actual D-Day was the most expansive amphibious invasion. It was right over here. And we were supposed to essentially be attacking a German front, even though it was on France. But this economic D-Day is supposed to be attacking the big guy here, China, because China buys the majority of Iranian oil. So Iran has approximately 40 billion or so in oil sales per year. Over 30 billion of that is to China. And so you would think that if we were going to do economic D-Day, we would be focusing sanctions and secondary sanctions on China and Russia. But it seems like we are afraid to do both. Now, what's the Russian connection? Well, Iran is connected to the Caspian Sea, and then the Caspian Sea connects to Russia. And as we discussed on prior episodes, Iran and Russia trade drone and missile technology back and forth. So you had Russia create the hypersonic missile, and then Iran actually improved upon said hypersonic missile with their zigzagging missile. And their zigzagging missile would be using AI to continually learn more advantageous ways to re-enter and attack the target. And as you can imagine, that zigzagging missile plus their drones have made it so that we have had trouble with our interceptors to defend from their attacks, which is why Iran's attacks in all of our bases around the Persian Gulf have been quite effective. So you would think that Iran, if we were sanctioning them, well, we would have to sanction Russia and China, but we are afraid of the downstream effects on the economy. So even Scott Bessent, who was the one who announced said economic D-Day, has vacillated between, oh, this is going to be punishing, and we've never seen anything like this. This is unprecedented. Well, what did you do? Well, we warned people that we would be doing things and that by a certain timeline they would need to change. Doesn't sound exactly like D-Day, does it? You know, I don't remember us warning Germany that we would attack unless they met certain conditions. I believe we just attacked, right? So the branding is cool, but in reality, is it putting us where we need to be? I don't know. And then we always go to the Strait of Hormuz tracker every single day, and so we can use this as a reminder. What day are we in the war? Day 181. Yes, yesterday was day 180, so we are now 6 months into this. And how many vessels? Ooh, that's a fair amount, actually. That is a fair amount. Well, see, this is why you got to update it. So when we started this program, it was 8 ships, and now it's down to 3. But as we've been talking, there is a lot of transponder messing around. Hey, I'm going to turn off my vessel's transponder so that it can't be tracked. This has been a common refrain. So 319 vessels waiting, and that has been about average. I've seen it as high as 450 before. And then the war risk premium, ooh, boy, 8.5%. That is a lot, okay? What is 8.5% in the war risk premium? That is 56.7 times the normal amount of 0.15%. Woof. So Iran, they are undergoing a lot of issues. Oh, they even attacked another vessel yesterday. This is a new one. Yesterday, when we checked it, this was not on the list. Tanker attacked in the Strait of Hormuz, and CNBC noted the attack directly tests Trump's claim that the Hormuz is a functioning strait. Vessel name and flag not yet confirmed. And I get what they're saying. So what Trump had said, and I can pull this up for you. So what the Trump administration is saying.
Update on 2 ongoing missions in the...
Sorry, pulled the... Okay. So we had claimed that we had removed every mine from the strait. Here is Commander Cooper from CENTCOM saying that we have cleared all the Iranian mines out of the Strait of Hormuz, and that's fine and dandy, as we've been talking about. So there were bilateral discussions between Oman and Iran, and again, it is very interesting how Oman always takes the side of Iran. very similar to how Qatar usually takes the side of Iran. But so we have in the Strait, so Iran takes the inbound and Oman takes the outbound. And so if you're hugging the north side of the Strait, that is the Iranian route. If you're hugging the south side, that is the Omani route. But in reality, the Omani route is the American military supervised route. And so we are the ones supervising people through this portion of the Strait. And the interesting thing about the Iran and Oman trying to control the Strait, they had within a week of their new setup of you take the outbound, I take the inbound. Well, Iran was trying to enforce this, but they struck this vessel called the Minoan Pioneer, and the Minoan Pioneer, they struck it in the engine room, and it caused a fire. It drifted towards Keshem Island, and it created a massive oil spill. So on the Iranian side right now, is a massive oil spill that they have to deal with, and then the Omani side, they don't have any such things. And yes, Hans, I am so with you. It's so hot in Los Angeles. I'm drinking pickle juice. Yes, I am. It's hot here in Texas too. My goodness. And my wife and I, we both met doing stand-up in LA. We love LA, but LA pushed us out, saying that my wife, because she didn't take an experimental injection, couldn't go into places like the Comedy Store. And so we moved to Texas, and the rest is history. So when it comes back to, we're back to economic D-Day over here, is this going to be effective? It could be. It actually could be. The economic squeeze on Iran is the better way to go. But to remind you, economic D-Day for Iran was 181 days ago. They already committed to their economic D-Day, and they didn't warn America. They did it, to their credit, and I don't like to give them credit, but hey, they have been a step ahead in this game of asymmetrical warfare, and there is a way for the United States and Israel to start to get back into winning this game of asymmetrical war, but they haven't really committed to it. And even the United States and Israel are not always on the same page, even though Israel in reality should be a vassal state to the United States and should just be doing everything that we're telling them in terms of this situation. Like, they have been a little uppity, okay, in terms of they are trying to dictate their agenda as well to America, and it's like, do you really have the leverage to do so? That is the discussion point. And what I'm referring to is the Hamas disarmament deal, and how Israel obviously is going to be distrusting of Hamas. That I totally understand, but I would like them to move forward with the Hamas disarmament deal in a more forceful manner, because in the end, that is part of the legs of the octopus strategy that I've been discussing at length and many times. So if you can take out the different proxies, Hamas in Israel, Hezbollah in Lebanon, the Popular Mobilization Forces in Iraq, and then the Houthis over here in Yemen, then you've just removed 4 fronts from the war, and now you can get back to focusing on your blockade of their blockade in the Strait of Hormuz, and then you might be able to get back to the original aims and objectives of this war, which were to denuclearize Iran, do regime change, and then if you remember, one of the aims, one of the original objectives was to get rid of the proxies. So in the end, it seems like it would be a good idea, except we are already running low on defensive missiles like interceptors. And so it would be if we were to attack the Houthis or the PMF, could we protect Saudi Arabia from being attacked? Because that's what the PMF and the Houthis are doing. They're either attacking the shipping along Saudi Arabia or they're actually attacking oil infrastructure within Saudi Arabia. Interesting fact about this, the Saudi oil infrastructure, they have had trouble actually hitting the pipeline. They can get the stuff above the sand, but even Iran has admitted that they have struggled to actually make a real strike in the Saudi oil pipelines. And so that is an interesting note. But then you would also want to take out Hezbollah and Hamas, which are more focused on Israel. And then, as we've discussed earlier, they've also struck Egypt, the port of Damietta. So, in the end, there is a potential for this to work, but as I stated on the last episode with you lovely gents and ladies in the chat of the cult, the execution has been very poor, and we've been very much behind Iran in a lot of these circumstances. So again, yeah, it's cute that we're doing economic D-Day now. Iran did their version of economic D-Day 181 days ago, 4 hours ago. So we're kind of behind. I must say, we're quite behind. And all this talk is cute, but some action would be nice. And so I have said quite often that if Trump doesn't resolve this in time, he will turn into Jimmy Carter. And if you remember, the Iranians completely tanked Jimmy Carter's whole term, and then to the point where he didn't have a second term because Reagan took over. Okay, and then that's when the Iranians ended up, making the deal, was right after Jimmy Carter was gone. And if Trump doesn't figure something out, that same scenario could play out where the Iranians are just going to wait until the next president. So I would think that they would have more of a sense of urgency, but it doesn't feel like they do. So I don't want to be I certainly don't want to tell you that we're winning, because that strains credulity. I don't want to be a doomer and say that there is no chance of us getting out of this, because there actually is, and you are seeing an effect on the economic squeeze. Unfortunately, it's Iran. They don't give a shit about their people. They have murdered them en masse to the tunes of thousands or tens of thousands, however you want to believe it. Either way, they're not very nice to their people. So when you're telling me, oh, the economic squeeze is working on Iran, it's like, well, is it working on the Iranian people or the IRGC? I bet the IRGC is economically insulated and inculcated from these issues, whereas the people, they are certainly going to feel the pain. But is that going to move the needle with the IRGC? I really don't think so. So Hans is saying it's almost like Trump thinks he's going to get a third term. He's delusional at this point. Now, I remember him joking about running for a third term at the beginning of the second term, at the height of his popularity. But at this point, with his popularity diminished, I don't even think he would have a chance in hell of winning a third term. Obviously he couldn't do it, but when he was at the height of his popularity, you could at least say, hey, and yes, I know he has said multiple times he actually would do it. I can tell you, I remember those comments. It was mostly tongue-in-cheek, being facetious, kind of poking the bear of the Democrats, and so that they would get distracted on BS. That was when he was actually ahead of things as opposed to behind. But yes, now, if he tried to run for a third term, he would get blown out. And I don't know if everyone is telling him that. You know, the Natalie Harp, the human printer, she prints out only positive news for him to reinforce all the good vibes in in the Oval Office. But yeah, I don't think he would win. And obviously, Iran is the reason. He actually was able to bring gas down prior to the Iran war. Now that's completely gone. So maybe at that point, you could have argued, oh, he could have ran for a third term and won, but now zero chance. And if he doesn't figure out how to turn this around and to force Iran into a solution, then he's going to turn into Jimmy Carter. And again, we just started our economic D-Day warnings, whereas Iran, 181 days ago, they already started their economic D-Day. So, and then, as we discussed, we're so afraid of ever sanctioning China. I just don't see it happening. But again, can we leave? No, because we have already set a precedent with the Strait of Hormuz. We can't allow it to be under control of the Iranians, because then that would set a precedent where you would have China fighting for control of the Strait of Malacca, which is actually an even more important juncture point. And there are many other juncture points like this. And so when the landmines, yeah, it is important that we're removing the landmines. In fact, the Strait of Dardanelles used to be the Dardanelles Strait used to be a much more important strait for shipping. But then World War I, the Turks ended up putting too many mines in the Dardanelles Strait, and then we shifted away from using the Dardanelles. So there is precedent to all this, and I would like to think that I could give you more positive news, but I don't want to lie to you. So I will say we can't just give up on this. This goes back to the first international war we ever fought, first overseas war against the Barbary pirates. And it goes back to even how Thomas Jefferson won his election by campaigning against the fees we were paying to the Barbary pirates, which at one point was a fifth of our national expenditure. And Thomas Jefferson campaigned on, yeah, let's use that money to build a navy and go kick some ass. And so that's how he defeated Adams. And so, yeah, Golf is saying 100% chance of a third impeachment, 0% chance of a third term. Yeah, and that is what the Republicans are not acknowledging, which is if the midterms are enough of a blue wave, then the Democrats will be aiming for impeaching Trump. And if the Democrats socialists hadn't taken over the party, I actually would think that there would have been enough of a blue wave where you could have done the real impeachment. Whereas in this scenario, you're going to get the basic level impeachment. You're not going to get to the 2/3, because the argument would be that you would have enough defectors on the Republican side who would want to save their hide by throwing Trump under the bus. But because there's been a red wave of the commies and sickles within the Democrat Party, I think it'll be balanced out enough where it won't be too much of a blue wave in the midterms. But yes, this is going to be a problem. And yeah, ultimately, Hans, Trump is toast. I would like to argue against that, but I just don't have a lot of data on the other side. And especially this economic D-Day, the branding of it is cool, but they aren't even fully executing it. It's hard for me to tell you that this is going to be a success story. It is hard. I genuinely think the Dems will take the House and Senate. I hate Dems, by the way. I think they're going to do it. Yeah, no, so I think we're in mostly agreement. I was talking like the Senate is going to be interesting. And again, part of it is someone like Abdul El-Sayed making that in a lot of these races where it should have been a shoo-in for the Democrats, now they're making it a little frisky, right? And so the Senate is going to be a little trickier. I think the House is inevitable. And so and when I'm talking about, obviously I'm not talking about a majority of the DSA. I mean, I'm not talking about a majority of the Democrat Party being taken over by the DSA, but even the 8 members, the 8 official members plus a couple of the unofficial ones like Abdul El-Sayed, yes, they aren't the majority, but they will have a hostile takeover of the party to where they feel like they are running everything. And so, that is where I feel like the Democrats will be harmed by the association with the DSA. But we'll see on that. Again, I want to give you more positive news with the Iran situation. I don't know. And then, there is still a way for the Democrats to overtake the Senate. And one of those, unfortunately, is right here in Texas. So it would I think even if they lost Michigan, if they were able to take Texas and Alaska, they could still have the Senate. And the scenario here in Texas is that Ken Paxton is this moral authority Christian who can't keep it in his pants. He has affair scandal after affair scandal. And the very interesting thing is that he is super anti-cannabis. Now, that I'm not like saying that that's a bad thing necessarily, but I have, doing stand-up, I have met many audience members and other degenerate comedians who are saying that they are one-issue voters and they are going to vote against Ken Paxton because of that. And so that is an interesting dynamic of he has caused enough issues. It is kind of the Republican version of the Abdul El-Sayed versus Haley Stevens argument. Yes, John Cornyn is a rhino extraordinaire. In fact, last episode when we were discussing H-1Bs, he was the example of the Republicans in the early 2000s being pro H-1B against the Democrats like Bernie Sanders, who were trying to protect American workers' rights, right? So it's not that I like John Cornyn. He is a great example of the old era of republicanism, the Bushies, that we are running away from. But John Cornyn easily would have been a better matchup against James Tallarico because he doesn't have as many issues as Ken Paxton. Now, as the creator of American History of Voter Fraud, I like Ken Paxton, okay? I don't think there has been anyone in America who has focused more on voter fraud than Mr. Paxton. So I am certainly keen to liking the gentleman, but I will acknowledge how many issues he has. Okay, really quick, let's go through your comments and then we'll wrap this up. So most of the DSA, this is from Golf, most of the DSA candidates are winning / gonna win. We were all mind blown that Hong didn't take Wisconsin, and to be honest, we kind of theorized the Dems fudged that one through, but we can't prove that. We did an episode on Francesca Hong, and I'll pull up the clip another time, but yeah, I am telling you, they took a shiv to Francesca Hong because it was very similar to 2020, and it was similar to that clip I showed you earlier in Milwaukee where the numbers spiked, the numbers went down, then they retabulated, and somehow Crowley came out ahead of Hong. So, yes, I agree with you 100% that they fudged that one through. I'm nervous. This is also, Han says, True Golf. Golf says, I'm nervous about Texas. looking at birth rate numbers from certain groups, it's daunting. Now, this is what I was referring to with Marco Rubio earlier. Republicans have just lost Hispanic men. They didn't really have Hispanic women in 2024, but they had Hispanic men by a stranglehold. Now I think they've lost them by like 30 points. And so in the Rio Grande Valley, the southern portion of Texas, those were the big gains that Trump and the Republicans made in 2024. And now you're seeing Democrats do far better in those areas. And so I think that's part of what you're referring to. Yes, I'd vote against him just for that too. Now, Melinda, I'm not sure where I stand on it all the time, but I will say it's just bad politics for Ken Paxton to go that far out on that issue. And especially when he's trying to get reelected. And there are so many people in this state. And look, it's not even real weed, okay? It's like Delta 8 or whatever. It's the cannabis equivalent of O'Doul's. You would get higher smoking Bible paper than smoking Delta 8. But he is so draconian on weed, he's not even allowing a cannabinoid isolate product. So Delta 8 is just one of the cannabinoids. They spray it on the male version of the cannabis plant, hemp, and that is the drug that they use. And it was, when I moved here, I was surprised at the ubiquity of these Delta 8 products. You could find them in gas stations, grocery stores. They were everywhere. And then with Mitch McConnell and making the hemp ban federal, then Abbott and Paxton were able to expedite said ban. And the penalties for being caught with any of these cannabis products is multiple years and sometimes like up to life. It is actually quite disturbing what the penalties are. I just think it's out of step with the rest of the nation. And then if you look at Texas, every state that borders Texas is either medical or recreational with cannabis. So, and if you're in the northern part, I'm in Dallas, right? If you get north enough in Dallas, they will joke, you're practically in Oklahoma. It's only an hour drive from where I am at right now to get to Oklahoma. That's where a lot of people go to get their cannabis. And so it is kind of foolish to have every state around you also have cannabis, but then you're going to treat it like it's heroin if you're caught with it here in Texas. So I think it's just bad politics, and I'm with you, Melinda, on that. And then Golf says they're about to reclassify cannabis also because the law doesn't really affect user numbers anyways, just what's publicly talked about. A lot of states have policies that will immediately change cannabis scheduling and law to align with the feds, like the moment. Sorry, everything just. Okay, with the feds, like the moment it happens, like West Virginia is one, similar to Pratt in the primary too. Hemp and cannabis are the same DNA. It's not necessarily hemp equals male. Okay, fair enough. Also, some males will naturally produce trichomes as well. Okay, Golf. I love that. We can talk cannabis. And yeah, it was like that in California too, says Melinda. Newsom banned the Delta 8 too. I'll be honest, I would rather just have, if you're going to do it, just give me the full cannabis, not the Delta 8. There are a lot of potential health issues. If you go back to the vapes, if you remember that, there was a lot of cutting with vitamin E and acetate. And so Delta 8 kind of lends itself to those issues. So 2018 Farm Bill was dope for a little while due to how some states calculate THC in a product versus THCA. Hemp is just genetics optimized for fiber or seed production, whereas medical recreational cannabis is focused on calyx and trichome production. Yeah, so the Delta 8 is it is interesting because it does look like cannabis, but it doesn't act very much like it. I have tested it out before, and it was, again, it's not very effective. If you're used to cannabis, the Delta 8 will be lackluster at best. But ultimately, there were people out here who were what I would call lightweights who really liked the Delta 8 products. The Delta 8 edibles, many have accused of being tainted in a way. If you remember the Wild Wild West of the edibles in the beginning, there were edibles that they accused of being cut with drugs like Adderall. So I imagine there's some shenanigans like that going on. And so I would rather just allow the full cannabis in Texas if you're going to do it. But either way, I just feel like it's bad politics coming from a guy who cannot afford to lose any voters, independent voters, or having people who would not normally vote get up off the couch to vote for one specific issue. Just seems like a bad idea, especially when the margins are so thin and we need to change everything. So, okay. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It is going backwards. He is probably getting money from alcohol companies there, and that is hard to deny that there would be either pill, big pharma type companies or alcohol companies who are trying to push against that. And I'm not one of these people who says like cannabis is the ultimate medicine. I'm sure there are drawbacks to it, just like anything else. But I also am acknowledging, hey, this is where the country is. This is where a big portion of the state is. I can tell you, being in Dallas in particular, the cities have a certain opinion on this. And so if you're Ken Paxton or if you're someone advising Ken Paxton, I would say it's not worth the battle. And so, okay, let's see. California OG is the only way to go. Ocean grown, baby. We have the best. California weed is so ubiquitous that when you're getting black market cannabis from in other states, it is most likely from California. It just hasn't been offloaded. If you know the game of cannabis, California created too much supply past the demand. So the one thing that has beat inflation has been cannabis. Your eighths and your ounces and your pounds, they have actually either stayed the same or tracked downwards during this crazy amount of inflation, partially because of California completely ruining the supply portion versus the demand. So shout out to you, California. Great job. I am currently not smoking, but I am always supportive of those who do. So, okay. In states that have legalized, booze has gone way down. I will say a lot of it is a generational thing where you're seeing in Gen Z and millennials a trend towards smoking rather than drinking. And I'm not sure how I feel about that. Some of the greatest societies were built off of alcoholism, and then some of the worst societies revolve around cannabis and, the stoner type culture. So I'm not sure about that. I support everyone and what they do. I'm not sure if that trend is a great trend. I don't know. We'll see. And yes, you're right, Golf. It's all about the individual and the genetics, ultimately. And yes, there are many people like you or I who are probably on the more productive end. And so, yeah, it all varies. Okay, so we have done 3 hours tonight, and this is my most successful stream yet, following up on my prior most successful stream last night. I want to thank Golf, Hans Sexington, Melinda, Reagan, so many different people. Georgia just had a bust of 1,800 pounds of weed that came from California. Dang, imagine being the people of that. And Prohibition created great men. That's so right. But this was an amazing stream. I want to thank all of you. I feel like I have a bunch of new friends. I'm part of the cult of Karlin Borisenko and all of you. I can't wait to do more. We'll do another one tomorrow. I mean, I survived my migraines and I was able to get through this one. So we'll definitely have a Friday stream. I will try and join the Saturday stream with you guys. And then Sunday we will have... I don't think I will have a stream because no, I will not, because I'll be celebrating my birthday with family and then my wife. So we'll not have one this Sunday. Usually we will, but that's a special circumstance because of my birthday. But we'll have one more stream tomorrow night. Cannot wait. And okay, 6 p.m. Eastern, Socialism Saturday. Awesome. I will check that out. Thank you so much, Hans, for saying that you love my work. I appreciate you. I love all of you. Thank you for wishing me a preview of my birthday. Thank you all so much. I will see you Friday sometime between 8 and 10, depending on how work allows. Thank you all so much. God bless America. God bless all of you. And